Now entering the Square Circle Pit, we have the first professional wrestler on the show. I'm very excited for this one. Frankie Kazarian, noted metalhead. Thank you for doing the show, Frankie.
Thank you for having me, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I first noticed a few years ago when you were still with TNA that you would have your tights. You came out as Kaz, and you had your logo, the K and the KAZ as like the Metallica logo. And then I
Yep.
noticed you
Yeah,
had.
that was.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that was my early idea to kind of wear my metal love on my sleeve, so to speak. It's just to kind of copy the font, but use my name, and while still trying to look like a quote unquote pro wrestler, with other various types of flashy gear. And as the years have progressed, and as I've progressed, I've full on gone to now, wearing the battle vest into the ring, and just everything is pretty much heavy metal oriented on my appearance.
I'm all about it. I love it. Yeah, I love like. At first, I was like, no, this is a coincidence. But then there was like the Slayer logo, and I'm like, okay, no, there's no coincidence here. This is very intentional, and I'm super into it. So what came first
Yeah, man,
was.
I mean,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
sorry to cut you off, but yeah, the more the more you're yourself out there, the easier it is, and the funner it is, and the better it is. And I really just embraced that as I got older. That's something I love as much as I love wrestling. So I figured, I'm going to fly the flag for it and use my platform and make my voice heard about my love for hard rock and heavy metal.
Yeah, that's really cool. And also it's kind of an area that not too many wrestlers have like exploited for their personal characters. There haven't been too many metal wrestlers. I can't really like Raven and Headbangers are the only two that really come to mind off the top of
Yeah,
my head. So
yeah, it's pretty. It's few and far between. The guys that are into this type of music. Some that say like, oh, I like Turbo Lover and I like Enter Sandman, but they're not really fans kind of emerged in the culture. But
right.
yeah, there have been a couple, like you've mentioned over the years.
So like, are there any wrestlers that you talk shop with that you like trade bands you check out and stuff like that? Any other fellow metalheads on the road?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, there's been a couple. First one that comes to mind is Bubba Ray, Bully Ray, whatever you want to call him.
Of
He and
course.
I have actually, we've gone to concerts together. Him and I went and saw AC/DC together in Florida, and saw Black Label Society. And he and I are similar taste in music. Obviously, Chris Jericho. We'll exchange tweets about music, or texts about music and stuff, new albums. When I was in TNA, Gunner's a big metalhead and pretty knowledgeable, and we'd chat about it. And recently in Ring of Honor, like Kyle O'Reilly, unbeknownst to me, was a bit of a metalhead and kind of liked some newer punk stuff, and we would chat about it. But it kind of ends there. A few other guys are somewhat knowledgeable, but not to the nerdy obsession level that I am. But yeah, over the years there's been it's kind of a natural crossover. Just heavy metal and pro wrestling just kind of goes together a little bit. But yeah, there hasn't been the real hardcore fans other than maybe 5 or 10 guys over the years. Jerry Lynn also. Jerry Lynn was back. Jerry Lynn was into like death metal, like real hardcore stuff back,
Yeah.
like when I first met him, and stuff that I had never really even stumbled upon until talking to him and hearing some of these bands. And I just saw him the other day, and he told me he's listening to a lot of bluesy stuff nowadays. So that's quite the turn.
Oh, interesting. He's over the death metal. Yeah, I remember he came out to like a death metal song
Yeah.
in early Ring of Honor too. That was pretty great. It was yeah, so that's awesome, and I definitely agree. There's a big crossover with wrestling and metal, and it's part of the reason that I started this podcast, because I just noticed so many of my metalhead friends are wrestling fans, and just how there's so many things in common. And I'm curious on your end, what came first, your discovery of metal or your discovery of pro wrestling?
Just based on age, it was my discovery of pro wrestling. I got big into pro wrestling when I was about 7 years old, and that's right around the time WrestleMania 2 is about to happen, and WrestleMania 1 had just happened. And, I was always a fan of, in my house, there was always the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and, Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson and Frank Zappa and, just a whole different cornucopia of music playing. So I was always exposed to that, which I'm very thankful for. But I got into wrestling when I was about 7 years old and became completely obsessed with that. Always loved music. And then when Guns N' Roses broke, they, I completely was enamored with them, and they were kind of my gateway band into harder rock. I remember a friend of mine knew I was a big Guns N' Roses fan, and he handed me a cassette tape, a recorded cassette tape, and he said, if you like Guns N' Roses, you'll love these guys. And it was And Justice for All by Metallica. And I put that in, and it was something like I'd never heard before. And, then you go down the rabbit hole, and you start discovering everything. And, I had a buddy of mine that he had 2 older brothers. And when I'd go to his house, I remember going into his brother's room. A, it was disgusting. It stunk. But B, there was posters of Maiden and Priest and Quiet Riot everywhere. And it kind of freaked me out in a weird way, but I was drawn to it. I was like, man, this is cool because it's kind of scary. And they'd be playing, all those bands, and so I knew what it was about, but I never really got into it until I was about 11 years old, 12 years old, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, I feel older siblings are the most responsible for getting kids into metal.
Certainly.
Half of metalheads wouldn't exist without an older brother being like, put that down, listen to this, or an older sister for that matter. That's cool. So what are some bands, what are some of your favorites? Obviously Metallica, the classics, but what are you jamming right now?
Yeah, man, I'm a tried and true diehard Metallica fan, and I have been since I first heard them, and I'm one of those defenders of Metallica, and I'll go to my grave defending them just because I think they're just an incredible band and what they've done for music and the genre. And I love them. I've been fortunate enough to meet 2 of them, and it's that's just they're always going to hold a special place in my heart. Aside from that, big Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, some of Ozzy's solo stuff, Megadeth, all the big four stuff. Yes. I really dig.
So more on the classic side of that. I guess now it is classic metal, but more the thrashier stuff.
Sure, man. Yeah. But also on the same token, I've got really dig Pantera. Newer stuff. I guess it wouldn't be considered newer, but I'm really digging a lot of Hatebreed and Jamie Justice stuff, and this last Disturbed album I thought was pretty cool. There's some obscure stuff. There's this German band called Cadaver I really like, who's on Nuclear Blast record. And Scorpion Child.
Awesome.
They're great. And I try to expose myself to as much music as I can. It's really hard to keep up with, and some of it really kind of starts running together. But I find myself going back to those classic albums or those songs that are in my iPod that are just the tried and true songs that I grew up with and that just never get old.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of, I'm sure it's hard to keep up, especially when your job requires you to travel so much. You don't have time to really sit down and go discovering on blogs and stuff like that. So the music sort of has to come to you, I'm guessing.
Yeah, pretty much. I have a buddy of mine in Chicago, Patrick, who runs Challengers Comics, and he's kind enough to Dropbox me new records all the time and stuff that he thinks I'll like because he has similar taste, which I listen to some of that, and some of it I'll go out and buy the album. Some of it I'll just kind of give it a shot, but if it's not for me, but I try to discover if there's Gojira as a band I have gotten into in the last several months just by word of mouth and by hearing that they're and they are, and they're really great. Mastodon on the same token, I've been into them for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So bands like that, just you hear these bands' names and you hear other musicians talking about them so much, and you think, well, there's something there, and you listen to them, and sure enough, it's right up my alley. While I may not like all their stuff, I like a good majority of it, and enough to certainly go buy a record.
Yeah, and Gojira, like I would say, the best version of Gojira is live Gojira because they are so massive live, and it's such a
Yeah,
presentation.
I've
It's
heard
unlike
that.
any modern band.
I've heard that, and they're actually going to be on the bill with Avenged and Metallica when I see them this summer. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Oh, that's great! Like I'm so jealous
Yeah,
because nothing against Volbeat. Volbeat is on the East Coast part of the tour, but I would
yeah,
I would love to see Gojira, especially in that kind of like stadium setting, because those their music is so heavy and huge. It belongs in that kind of setting, you know.
yeah, man. I'm really looking for all the sites for that. I didn't find that out until the day I actually got the tickets. I was able to get early, like a week advance tickets, and I saw that they were playing, and I was pretty psyched. You know, because I've seen Metallica close probably 19 times, and I've seen Avenged probably 3 or 4 times, but have yet to see them. So I'm very much looking forward to that. You know, especially in that setting, like you said, and you can get there early enough, and you know, it's still going to be fairly empty because you know, let's be honest, people are there for the main act. So you know, to be able to get up there and really just take it in will be pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so you mentioned being a Metallica defender, and I was curious, what are your thoughts on the new album that they released, Hardwired to Self Destruct, a few months ago? Were you a fan of it?
Well, I loved it, man. I loved it from the first time I heard Hardwired, and you know, I think it's their best effort since the Black Album. You know, nothing against Load, Reload, Saint Anger, and Death Magnetic, because you know, I like a lot of songs on Load and Reload. I really do. And you know, Saint Anger was what it was, and it really captured a you know a portrait of where the band was and their attitude at the time. You know, some people don't like the sound of it, and I understand that, but you know, it's very raw. You know,
Do
which
you
I
ever
think is cool.
actually go
And
back to it though? Do you ever like, oh, I feel like listening to Saint Anger today, or you've had your time with it?
yeah, I mean, you know, I remember maybe a year and a half ago, I just put that whole album on and just listened to it, and I was like, you know, I get it now. I totally get it. You know, that was one I defended to, and I can't say I love the sound of it, but there's some songs that are just, you know, it's and you watch Some Kind of Monster, and you could just you know where that angst and that emotion's coming from, and that's you know, music's about emotion, dude. So I think that's pretty cool. And Death Magnetic had some awesome songs.
Yeah,
You know,
I
I
like
thought
that.
that was,
Yeah, I like Death
yeah, you
Magnetic.
know yeah, it really took them back to their roots, you know, and they really, uh, you know, came out with something that people weren't expecting, and I think Hardwired has just you know not necessarily improved on all of that, but just you know perfected it because I
Yeah,
really dig this batch of songs and how James is singing and everything about it.
I agree with you completely. I feel like Death Magnetic was almost like a transitional album for them, where like they were still trying to recapture their old sound and kind of meld it with their modern sound and their modern playing, and they didn't quite figure it out on Death Magnetic. I feel, which is not to say
Yeah,
there weren't catchy songs. There were a few songs that constantly still get stuck in my head. Just randomly, I'll wake up and have that was just your life stuck in my head or whatever. But this new
sure.
one, this new one, from beginning to end, I thought it was excellent, and I agree with you. They've completely figured out what they should sound like today, and James's singing is fantastic. The drumming is great. I don't really have any like the length of the album is perfect. It's just a really great album, and it for me, I was totally one of those people that was kind of like, oh, the first four records is all that matter, all I'm gonna listen
Yeah,
to, all that matters.
yeah,
But like this new one, like really surprised me, and I'm really happy about it because I think Metallica is such an important band for heavy metal, and I'm glad that the fans are kind of back on their side, so to speak. You know, it's almost like this album was like a face turn for them.
yeah. No, you know what, man, and I've heard other people share those thoughts. You know that you know they haven't made a good album since Justice people or since you know Master Puppets, and there's a lot of those people, and a lot of those people are even saying like, wow, this is you know this this harkens back to their roots more than any of their other albums. They really got into it, and yeah, and I just think it's you know it's the evolution of Metallica, and one thing you know they've always said they're a band that plays the music they like that they would listen to, which I think is admirable, and I think that's if you're true to yourself, that's what you should do, and maybe took the pressure off themselves and just said we're just going to jam the stuff that we like, and that the difference is they're Metallica and they make great music. And yeah, man, I really dig this, and I think it's definitely going to go down. I think people are going to categorize this with the Black Album and the first 4 albums as definitely one of their best.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and it gets me excited to wonder about, like, oh, where could they possibly go from here on their next album?
Yeah, we're as hardcore metalheads, we're always looking for the next album, and I'm already kind of like, I'm in the same boat. I'm already thinking like, wow, I wonder what they're going to do, wonder what they're going to do next.
Yeah, so they're going to be they're touring for another 2 years. When can they when are they getting back in the studio to start working?
But yeah. First, I want to see them live again because it's been a while. Let them do their thing. They tour like no other band. They're going to tour the world, 3 or 4 times over, and then, but they've already said they're not going to wait another 8 years to get in the studio, which is great news to anyone that wants new music from them.
Yeah, I can imagine. I feel like it was just a unique set of circumstances that resulted in such a long. This was the longest delay between albums that they've ever had. So.
Yeah, it's not like they were just doing nothing, like they were all vacationing. They were. Yeah. They were still touring to a certain extent. They were doing the Big Four stuff. They were, doing
they put out that movie. Yeah, they did Lulu.
Yeah,
they did theoretically put out a really. What did you think of Lulu?
Yeah, I didn't. The thing about Lulu is going into it. It wasn't something that I thought like, wow, I can't wait till Lulu comes out.
Right.
I never thought that. It was just like, okay, they're doing this. And this is a passion play. It's obviously something that is important to them. So, as a fan, I'll check it out. It was what it was. I actually didn't even purchase it. I listened to it, and I was like, okay, but I just, it wasn't for me. But I respect a band that's going to go out on a ledge like that and do something that's from their heart that they're passionate about. It was Metallica playing, while Lou Reed sang, and it was what it was. I knew what it was going to be, and I didn't get so upset and go write a blog or go write a comment about how they're sold out and how they suck and how this, it was exactly what I was expecting it to be.
Right on. And, just switching gears a little, speaking of pretty metal fit dudes, I did a little research on you, and I saw that you were trained by Killer Kowalski, a pretty metal pro wrestler. What was it like? What was he like as a trainer? Was he scared? Was he a scary dude? He seems like a scary dude to me.
Well, yeah, despite the name, he was an absolute angel and a sweetheart of a man. Mm-hmm. As a pro wrestler, Killer Kowalski was one of the scariest villains of his time. And just to meet him, he's a very, very big man, a very deep voice, and a bit intimidating. And he could get angry when he was training, and that was also quite scary. But I got to know him on a very, very personal level, and actually he would come to my house to pick me up to go to a wrestling class, and I would go to church with him on Sundays, and just, I think he respected the fact that I moved from Southern California all the way to Massachusetts to train specifically with him. So he really went out of his way to help me out, like I said, and tote me around, and even like going so far as to, like giving me extra training before and after class, and just an angel of a man. Yeah, just an absolute sweetheart of a man. But yeah, he could get upset, and he was not a fun person to be around when he was. But Walter Kowalski, the man, was just an incredible human being.
Why did you decide to go there? Why, of all the wrestling schools, why Killer Kowalski School?
I'd researched, and this was back in the 90s, and there wasn't, the swarm of information that there is now about everything. And, to find a wrestling school, you had to, I sent away and got a couple books on how to get into pro wrestling. And, in those books, they had wrestling schools addresses. And so I remember, looking through them and finding 3 of them that I thought would be good options. And those 3 were the WCW Power Plant, the Hart Dungeon in Calgary, and Kowalski's, just based on, who they'd trained. And, I knew Killer Kowalski had trained Big John Studd and, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, who was, pretty hot in the WWF at the time. And I actually met Bret Hart and told, and asked about getting into the business and, where was a good place to get trained. And I thought for sure he would say the Dungeon. And he recommended Kowalski School. So I was like, wow, okay. And he said, he's turning out some really good students. So that was all I needed, because Bret Hart was one of my favorites and one of my heroes. So, that was that. I saved up the money and, did my research and just, set my goal on going there. And, it just kind of sucked being a kid from Southern California that it was in the complete opposite part of the country.
Yeah.
But, I figured if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And so I was all in, and that's how the decision was made.
How did you get in touch with Bret Hart at that time?
Just through an autograph signing, meeting, going as a mark and just meeting, and talking to, just.
Yeah. Wow. That was very honest of him.
Yeah, it certainly was, and like, and I thought, knowing now what I know about how the Hart camp was run, I could understand why he didn't necessarily recommend that. But, and then years later, I'd met him also when I was just starting in the business, and I told him that he had recommended Kowalski School, and I went, and I was now wrestling, and thanked him, and, he said, he used to recommend Kowalski School, but Helmsley pissed him off, so now he doesn't or something. He wasn't in a good mood that day. But I've since had conversations with him, and I was very, very grateful for that.
Did you always know you wanted to be a wrestler, or was it kind of like, oh, I'm either going to be a wrestler in a band, or when was that decision made?
It was a dream. It was a dream the same way as being in a band was. It was wow, that would be cool to do. And I was so obsessed with wrestling. It was like I thought of nothing else. So much so that like when it came time to, in junior year, senior year of high school, and kids are making plans to go to college or do whatever, I'm stuck there going, but I want to be a pro wrestler. Like, how's this going to work? And like, I almost signed up for the Navy, and I was, just like in the back of my mind, it was like, you really want to do this, man, you got to do it. And you got to go all in and, at least give yourself the shot, and just that started me on a path of everything from trying to gain size and weight training and just researching the business and seeing how I have to go about it. And, I'm blessed and lucky enough that my dream became true, after a lot of hard work and blood, sweat, and tears and all those other cliches we throw out there. It was a dream, and just like being in a band, I always wanted to either play guitar or do something in a band.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now you're doing that as well. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but just to talk a little bit more about your wrestling stuff, you really, I feel like the first time I heard of you was in TNA with the X Division. And I feel like in the mid-2000s, TNA had unquestionably the best active roster in pro wrestling in terms of work rate. And you had so many other guys. Like, what was the vibe like back then in that locker room with all the young guys, all the people that are now kind of, all of you have now established yourselves and are, these veterans of the sport, but like everyone was so hungry and out there to prove themselves. What was it like? Like, what was the feeling in the mid-2000s back there?
I agree, man. It was the place to be, I thought. And it was, I have to compare it. I always say TNA was then what NXT is now, the cool spot where the fans, the same fans would come over and over and just were totally into the product. And you look at the roster we had and, from Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, Chris Daniels, myself, Chris Sabin, America's Most Wanted, and Bobby Roode, and just outstanding wrestlers, and we were doing something different, and it was cool and it was fresh, and the X Division was something different, and we'd started establishing ourselves, and it was just an alternative, especially in a time when the business needed it the most, and we all thought, we thought we were going to be there forever. When I say we, I'm talking of my, core group of friends, back in the day, being Chris Daniels and AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. And, we thought we'd be lifers there, and we thought we'd be running the place one day. And it's just, it ended up going in a different direction, but we've all done okay as well. So not too concerned about that. But yeah, it was, some fond memories, and there were some really good times. And it was it was like you said, it was the hottest act around for a while.
Yeah, and it was honestly at such a dark time for wrestling as a fan. I can say, it was right after WCW and ECW went out of business, and before kind of the proliferation of video on the internet too. So there wasn't many places to watch wrestling, and some people weren't into what WWE was doing at the time, which to me was honestly like almost another dark period for them, like right before the Attitude Era. It really felt like the same, just because they were just the people they were bringing up were like they just couldn't work. There weren't good matches. It was all about the storylines, and the storylines weren't even that good.
TNA brought that athleticism, especially with the advent of the X division, and just really brought something different to the table.
Yeah, and so with the X division, clearly WWE saw something in there, because I remember that there was talk that they were going to start a cruiserweight division as well, because WWE had some decent wrestlers. They had like Paul London and Nunzio and stuff, and you went over there for a little bit, right? And
yep.
So there was a rumor at the time, and if you don't want to answer this, feel free not to, that they wanted you to cut your hair, and that's why that was the final straw or something, and you quit over that. Was that true?
That wasn't they asked me to do it, and I said no, but that wasn't the final straw.
Okay.
They could have asked me to change my tights, and I wouldn't have, because it was like, oh, cut your hair and look like everybody else on the roster, and I was like, no, and looking back, that took a lot of balls. But one thing I've always done is stand up for myself, when a lot of people don't, especially in this business. A lot of people just become sheep and corporate yes men, kiss ass. And I was never going to do that. And if I felt strongly about something, even if something as stupid as hair, I was going to stick to my guns. I was like, no, you brought me in, looking the way I do. Now you want me to turn into like pretty much anyone else off the assembly line that you bring up, and it had been brewing at that point. There was just, I found out that I just didn't like the business part of it, and it became a job for me, and that's 100% on me. That's no fault of the WWE.
Right. But I was gonna say, I'm sure getting to WWE was like a lifelong dream in some ways, and then once you got there, you realize, oh, it's not necessarily what I expected, right? Like, it's a little different.
Yeah, at that time for me, I just wasn't, and I've said this in the past, I just wasn't mature enough as a athlete or as a man to be there. I wasn't ready.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't ready to treat it like a business. But that happened, and I recovered from that. It's fine, and I'm proud of myself for even at a younger age standing by my guns and sticking up for myself.
Yeah, not a lot of people would do that, and so when you left WWE, were you still intent on making it work, or was it kind of like, well, that was it? Like, what was your feeling like at that moment when you were kind of coming back into the indies?
Well, I had naively thought that I could just return right to TNA, because I had several people in the office told me that would be the case. If it doesn't work out, you always have a spot back here. Well, that wasn't the case, because certain people's feelings were hurt, and certain people were upset that I left in the first place, even though I couldn't understand why they'd be upset. Who could blame me for leaving? But so it took me a long time to get back to TNA. It took me a good almost a year to get back, and when I got back, I had to eat shit for a while. And but that was always my goal, was to get back on television somewhere and do, and hopefully TNA was a good fit for me, because I knew the management, I knew the roster, I was familiar with it, people knew me. And, so when I got back there, I started at the very bottom again and had to work my way up to establish myself. And I did just that.
And then you did eventually cut your hair. What for you, when was the moment that, like, all right, as much of a metalhead as I am, I got to get rid of these locks?
Yeah, that was more like, it was almost to prove like it wasn't about that.
Right.
Like, I'll cut the hair, man, so I cut it, and I grew it back, and I cut it again, and I grew it back, and
I see.
I cut it a few years ago, and I haven't grown it back yet. Maybe someday, but it was just another one of those, sticking my middle finger up to the establishment moments. Like, dude, I'll cut my hair tomorrow if I want to. It's, I control
it's your
what
decision
I do.
ultimately. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm not going to be told what to do. And that's, like I said, I've lost jobs, I've lost friendships, I've lost shoot jobs back in the day because of that. Because, sometimes I'm stubborn to a fault and, a bit rebellious by nature.
Right on. And I have to say, with you and Christopher Daniels, the tag team that you guys formed, first as Bad Influence and then as The Addiction, you guys really, and this was kind of at the time where there was like a whole, new, maybe, I don't know if generation is the term, but like a bunch of new guys coming in and like they're becoming the hot stuff. And you guys kind of were like, hey, don't forget who's been here. and I really like, you guys had some amazing matches with everybody. And so what was it like? Did that feel good at that point to kind of like, in a sense, prove your worth? Be like, yeah, there's a reason, I've been in the business this long.
Yeah. I mean, when we first started the team, we knew it would work just based on, the fact that we were very good friends and our chemistry in the ring as opponents was great. And the landscape of TNA at the time, especially with tag teams, they just, there was nothing going on. And we knew we were, as talented, if not more talented than everyone, that was involved in the tag team division. So we pitched it, and we weren't even supposed to last. The original idea wasn't for us to even last at all, but we just caught fire, and the stuff we were doing in the ring was so entertaining, and the stuff we were doing in terms of vignettes or backstage promos or in-ring promos just were really, really, just really engaging and really hot and really getting great reviews from fans and management alike. And it just, and I still think to this day that they didn't even let us, they gave us the ball to an extent, but they took it out of our hands immediately because we could have done so much more than we did there.
Would it be the first time I heard that about TNA?
No, I know. And it's too bad, and it's nothing. We would always be told, you guys are bulletproof. You're entertaining. You guys you can't be touched. And it's like, okay, if we're so bulletproof, imagine if you put a little steam behind us, how, the things we could do. But, that's in the past. It is what it is.
Yeah. I don't want to rag on TNA too much, but I just, like, I'm not one of those people, I'm one of those people that like, if there's a place for people to work, I hope that place succeeds as much as possible, but
certainly me too, man.
Yeah. I think it's dumb to wish someone out of business. It's ridiculous. But
sure.
At the same time, for me as a fan, I would always want, as a fan, seeing how the poor business decisions they would make, for someone working there and you seeing that as well, is it kind of like a red flag? Like, I need to get out of here, or like, I'm not even going to worry about that. I'm just going to focus on my job. Like, how did you deal with all the news about like the backstage bad business decisions that was going on?
I honestly never did worry about that until like maybe the last 6 months there. Because I had been hearing that stuff since day one, and it was after, and it would kind of freak me out a little bit at first. And after a while, it was just like, people were just, that's the thing to do, is just bury this company and talk bad about it. But just, in my last 6 months, when I really saw that the writing on the wall was bad, and there was just shifts in management and just some of the stupid decisions that were being made behind the scenes. And, I remember January of 2014 being in England saying, for the first time ever, just to myself, I don't want to work here anymore. When my contract's up, I'm done regardless. Like, there's nothing they could do. I just, maybe I'd been there too long, and just the new regime at that point, what I thought was just really, really, just really making some horrendous decisions. And, and that's when it started affecting me. But before that, I never really, gave that any attention because I had heard it for so long.
Right. And now you've been in Ring of Honor now for a while, and it started with you and Daniels as a tag team, and now you've joined the Bullet Club. I have to imagine that the stability in Ring of Honor is much more evident than in TNA.
Yeah, man, and you look at the roster that we got right now, and it's untouchable, and it's kind of been that way since we first got there, 2014.
Yeah, I would argue, you were saying that like NXT is kind of what TNA was. I would argue that Ring of Honor right now is, in a sense, what Impact should have been. like
Sure, absolutely.
like what they
Especially,
should
yeah.
have
I mean,
worked
that's,
towards.
yeah,
Because
that's a good point. And if and if Ring of Honor had the cable reach that TNA had when they were on Spike, who knows what Ring of Honor could have done?
right.
Ring of Honor's got a great partner with Sinclair Broadcasting right now, and been very successful. But yeah, Ring of Honor's in-ring product, especially, I mean, it's kind of always been their go-to is their in-ring product. I mean, right now, I don't think it can be touched.
I think last you guys were in like the Addiction. You guys were in the New Japan Tag League, and you did some Japan shows. Was that your first time going over to Japan, like a year or two ago?
No, yeah, we went 2015. We did the Tag League tournament, November 2015. No, I had gone to Japan first in 2001 with a group called Zero One,
Oh,
which was
okay.
run by Hashimoto. And yeah, so I'd gone over there for a couple of years. And then I'd gone back previously with Wrestle One, which is Muda's company. And then when I joined Ring of Honor, I've gone over to New Japan a few times.
Now, like for me, that always seems like a huge goal to attain for a wrestler to have a successful tour. Now, you've had a few successful tours, and like each one, it sounds like a bigger promotion that you worked for. Is it kind of like another notch on the belt? Like, yeah, I did Japan.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool to, like I'd been to Japan, like I said, several, 5 or 10, probably 10 times. But to go there for New Japan was definitely cool and a feather in the cap and something that, that was kind of on the bucket list. And, I'm glad I was able to do it, and hopefully I'm able to go back.
Right on. And so now let's just talk about your band, because I think this is so cool that in addition to being a wrestler, you play bass, right? That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you play bass, and the
Yep.
band is called VexTemper. When
Yep.
did you start playing bass?
I started playing bass guitar right after I graduated high school. I always just loved the sound of the bass guitar, and luckily enough, my grandfather was a musician in Las Vegas, and I had went to visit him and told him that I was interested in picking up the bass guitar, and he was he was thrilled about that, and so he brought me into the other room and opened up a case, and there was a 1966 Fender Mustang bass guitar, and gave it to me right there on the spot, which was I still have to this day, and I cherish it. I'll obviously never get rid of it. But yeah, an original 1966 Fender Mustang bass, and started learning how to play and taught myself, man. And I learned on reading a little bit of music, mostly tablature, reading heavy metal books and Metallica books, and learning how to play those songs. And just started jamming with some buddies, and at the same time I was also getting into the business, so that took precedence, but always played. And it was kind of always something I did outside of wrestling. But wrestling, obviously, I got very, very busy over the course of the last 19 years, and you start traveling and you're barely home, and so I couldn't necessarily play music in a band or do anything very, very serious. I just always played, up until the last several years when, VexTemper was formed.
So how did that happen? How did that come together, VexTemper?
Well, basically I'd moved, my wife and I had moved back to California we were living in Florida, bought a place out here, and knew some buddies that jammed, and went over and just literally with the thought of, I want to go jam with some guys. And our drummer Justin, his place, he has everything set up there, so we'd go jam, and after a while we write a couple of original songs, and they started to sound pretty cool, and do some covers and write another original, and like, wow, we might have something here. And we just okay, well, let's do this every week, twice a week. Let's keep going. We've had one lineup change, which happened a couple years ago, but it just snowballed into something where we realized, wow, we like doing this. We booked some gigs, we played some gigs, we started having fun. Like I said, we had 7 really cool songs that we had written, and it was like, well, let's do this. And so everyone just put all their effort into it, and we got in there and recorded these songs, and I'm in the process of released 2 of them, and the album's out April 7th. So it's just it's super, super cool for me and for those guys, because they're all incredibly talented musicians, and it's cool for me at this stage in my career to do something music related and get that out there, and use wrestling, what I've built in wrestling, as a platform to show it to all these people and let them listen to it, and and see this other side of my creativity.
Yeah, and you guys, VexTemper does the Addictions theme song, and
Yeah.
a few years ago when you got Ring of Honor came to New York at the baseball stadium in the summer, you guys were the first ones out, I remember, and that the rest of that week I had that riff, like all week I had it stuck in my head. It's such a catchy
That's
riff.
an earworm, man.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of people say that, and that's something cool that, when Chris and I first turned heel, we needed new music, and I had Ring of Honor. They sent us this site, and they said, pick a song from this page, and it was just this data bank of music, and I went, screw that, and then so I called them, and I was like, hey, I have a band. I was like, if I were to write something and record it, could we use it? And they said, sure. We have to have it by this day. So that night I went and sat down with the guitar, which I don't normally do because I play bass, and wrote the riff and wrote the song, came up with the melody and the lyrics, and gave it to my guys and said, hey man, would you guys be willing to do this? And they were thrilled to do it, to get our music out there. And then that song is pretty different from, the rest of our stuff, as people will find out when they get the album. We threw it on there because it is, I think we say that's our stripper song, or that's our most accessible song. It's got that greasy little riff that is a bit of an earworm, But yeah, it was cool. It's just still surreal to walk out to a riff I wrote, lyrics I wrote, and it's pretty cool, man.
that's awesome. And so you said the album's coming out April 10th?
April 7th.
Oh, April 7th. And
Yep.
where could people pick that up?
Well, it's going to be released April 7th digitally, so you'll be able to get it on all, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, all that stuff. And we are going to have physical copies as well, which probably will be available on our website, which is under construction and should be up and rolling by then, and the live gigs. And I'm a huge fan of actual physical music, so we've partnered up with a buddy I've known for years that's doing the actual physical disc for us, and it's going to be sweet too. And again, it's another bucket list thing. Just I wrote and recorded an album with my buddies and my band, and we're going to see where this goes, and we have no signs of stopping, man. We're going to keep trying to book up as many gigs as I can for this summer when I'm not wrestling, and keep it rolling, because I'm having too much damn fun, man.
That sounds like a really fun time. You got to connect with Chris Jericho and do a Fozzy VexTemper tour.
That'd be great. Yeah, we got to get on that level first, man. Yeah, he's
sure.
He's definitely shut up a lot of naysayers who thought that his band was just a gimmick and something that it wasn't something that he was super serious or passionate about. He's turned that into a incredibly successful band, and sure, I would absolutely follow suit on that. I put as much time and effort and love into this as I do into professional wrestling. So, I'm glad that that's finally starting to pay off.
Right on. We're going to play a song from VexTemper on the podcast. I'm going to play MPH at the end of
awesome,
this
man. Good choice. First single we released.
There we go. Frankie, thank you so much. Oh, and I should mention, you're going to be in Vegas Friday for the Ring of Honor 15th anniversary pay-per-view. Now, I see that you don't have a match announced, but the Bullet Club presence, I'm guessing, will be felt at the Ring of Honor pay-per-view.
Yeah, we will be in the house. I will make my presence felt. I can't really go into what I will be doing, but it will be sweet. And it'll be a good show. A good 2 days of tapings in Las Vegas.
Perhaps it'll be too sweet.
Perhaps.
Right on. Frankie, thank you so much for taking some time and talking to me. This was a great chat. I loved talking about metal, talking about wrestling, and anytime I could bring the two together, I'm all about it. Thank you so much.